Aloha, it's Dave Lawrence. How are you? I hope you're doing good today. We are joined by an artist who is headed to the islands for a pair of shows. It'll be Saturday, November 5th at the Waikiki Shell, Sunday, November 6th at the Mac, and a legendary roots reggae band that formed in Jamaica in the early 70s. From their second album, really, 96 Degrees in the Shade, they've been a force to be reckoned with. They've also been known for getting to work with a variety of interesting stars, from Stevie Wonder, who worked with them on the hit Try Ja Love. They've also been fixtures on the reggae scene because of experiences they've had with Bob Marley, some of his sons, even the Jackson 5. It is a great pleasure to welcome from Third World legendary guitarist Stephen Cat Coore. Aloha and mahalo, my brother.
Mahalo. How are you doing?
I'm very good. Thank you so much for taking a few minutes for us.
Yeah, no problem.
You have a real long time history in terms of reggae and the islands. There's a really strong connection in and of itself. How long have you been coming personally to Hawaii?
I guess probably from the early 80s, I think was our first visit. I think I guess shortly after Bob died, maybe like 83, 84, around that time, you know.
What do you remember of it?
Well, I remember the first time we came was really, really huge, and I remember playing at the Maui Tennis Center, and then at the Waikiki Shell, and just always have great memories of Hawaii. You know, I don't know, it just feels like it's a little too far to fly. It seems so close to us as Jamaicans, you know.
Yeah.
It just feels like it shouldn't be so far away.
Certainly, that's a good way to describe it, especially the many, many connections between the places. So you, other than Maui and here, have you guys gotten to gig on Kauai and the Big Island?
Yeah, we've done it all.
Okay. So so obviously you probably haven't done Molokai or Lanai, I'm guessing.
No, I don't think so. We may have done Molokai, but I'm not absolutely sure, but I know the four you mentioned before, the Big Island, Kauai, Maui, and Honolulu, we have done those.
Right, and that would totally make sense. And do you have any friends who live here in our community I need to know about?
Yes. Henry Capone would definitely come to mind immediately.
How long have you known Henry?
We did some work with him, and he's a really good friend, and Jack Miller lived there for some time. He's a cool guy, too, you know.
How long have you known Henry?
I've known Henry from just after Cecilia and Capone kind of split. Mm-hmm. And we did some work on his first solo album, the first Capone solo album. He's a really, really good guy, you know.
Yeah, he is. He's special. We're lucky to have him. So that's a friend of yours, and you can remember having gigged on those 4 different islands. One of the things that's kind of neat, Kat, about the islands, you already sort of know this, but I like exploring it with people from reggae bands. Reggae is huge here. It has this enormous place in the community. It's like everywhere you go, you see Bob's face on people's shirts, you see the colors. Are there things that come to mind that kind of explain why there's such a connection between reggae and Hawaii?
Well, I think that essentially, Jamaica's an island, and it seems to me that reggae music, besides being the awesome world leader that it is, has also been associated with islands. Mm-hmm. And I think that people think that it's island music, so...
And pretty much most island communities, reggae is pretty big.
Yeah. So I figure that has a lot to do with it, you know.
So in general, most places that you go that it's an island community, reggae tends to be a dominant force?
Well, I mean, I would say definitely in terms of the influence of Bob Marley, who is the reggae icon, I would say definitely there's no island I've been to anywhere in the world that wasn't into the Bob Marley thing. But the Caribbean islands and like in Hawaii, or we just recently went to Fiji, and it was it was a revelation how popular reggae music is there too. You know, they play a tremendous amount of their own reggae that they have there. And I guess it's a lot of Hawaiian reggae too, you know?
Right, yeah, Hawaiian, I was going to say.
Hawaiian music is huge.
So you're saying there's Fijian reggae.
Yeah, that.
Like, because local reggae from Fiji, I guess, would be Fijian. That's pretty cool. So you have noticed it. So there's a local community there. Has there ever been another island that struck you as, wow, they have their own reggae scene here that seemed really far away from Jamaica?
Yes. Iceland.
Reggae big there too, huh?
Yeah, they have a big following. Well, there's an Iceland reggae group called Hell Jamar, and I happen to play on their record. And they, are very huge in their community.
That's cool. Well, that explains it. It's a real universal phenomenon. When it comes to Jamaica and these days, third world, what is the position you guys have back there now through the evolution of reggae and dancehall and to where the music is these days?
Well, I think that it's all about the veteran business, and lots of people tend to focus on groups like us and like Steel Pulse and to a lesser extent Aswad, because they haven't been as vibrant over the last 10 years or 15 years. But they're obviously a very, very great band. And I think that most people figure that we are like veterans in the business,
Like classic rock almost.
Yes, exactly like classic rock. And it's a situation where a lot of people who sometimes I'm in the street in Kingston and somebody will say, like, you know who this is? Like to some young guy, you know who this is? And the young guy will be totally lost, even just like... some people say, oh, I saw him on TV, but some just say that they don't have a clue.
Right.
And the older guys say, like, this is a great Cat Coore, from Third World and this and that, and usually the young person will say, yeah, I hear about Third World, but they don't know much,
Right.
Because they grew up in this era where the only thing that was fed to them was what was happening in the dancehall era.
It's kind of like, in a way, I would draw a parallel to Black American music and sort of how, in so many ways, once rap came along and hip-hop, that it just kind of changed everything, and that became people's new base. And so many ways what you're describing with reggae, once dancehall really established itself, that became like the beginning in so many ways.
Absolutely. What happened is that the parents of the people who deal with dancehall, they can't understand dancehall, and then the dancehall kids can't understand the old reggae, the old...
Right. It's like a cultural chasm between you.
Yeah, but you have a couple of people that cross it, like Barry Hammond, he has managed to cross that, because he has a lot of hits that remain in the dancehall, and he's still from that era, and there are a couple of other people who have done that too, but, it's like... Once the whole thing with dancehall started, the whole focus was more on solo artists, not so much on groups.
Right.
So a group like Third World would have a problem there. But we're very lucky because we've been able to remain relevant and vibrant. And a lot of people in the dancehall say, why we're veterans and we're this and that, and have a lot of respect for us. So it's not that I'm really complaining, but, we're just looking at the elements of how things have changed throughout the whole Jamaican structure of music,
Right. Well, that's you just raised a really important thing I didn't even realize myself, is that once dancehall came, it really did become about a solo artist with tracks that were largely made in a computer or with studio work that didn't, in some cases, it was just sequencers and synthesizers. There weren't even musicians. And then you flash that back to the Roots era. You guys were beyond just being about the message, the socially conscious message. You guys also were about instrumentation.
Yeah, absolutely. And that is coming back in a big way down there now, because what we see happening in Jamaica now is that the Jamaica School of Music has all these kids in it now, because there's a pop department now, And that pop department is churning out a lot of kids with musical knowledge. So, we're beginning to see some difference in application in terms of, what the kids are doing. Mm-hmm. We're beginning to see some different stuff, and people like Stephen McGregor, and even my son Shia, who is with Damian Marley, those guys are producing some hip-hop tracks and stuff, yes, but they're beginning to get different and a lot more musical. So, I think it's a good thing in the long run because, your music ability allows you to express more and to be more free and to experiment more and to extend more the whole process of music and the process of what you're doing. So I think that it's a positive thing,
So you're saying that you see sort of, is it a renaissance in using instrumentation again, or is it a renaissance towards roots, or sort of both?
It's a renaissance to both, really, because it's a renaissance towards using a lot more musicality, chord changes, right. Arrangements, even using a lot more type of instrumentation, exploring new instruments and so on. I think it is a lot of all of that together that is happening. And what it's doing is it's opening up the scope, for what the young kids are doing now. It's opening the scope up a lot more and lending itself to a lot more, I think, a lot more future in terms of like music lasting long, because one of the things I've noticed about the music since the last 10 years maybe, or maybe a little bit more by the end of the 90s, is that I don't hear a lot of long-lasting music. Mm-hmm. I hear a lot of good tracks, but they're here today and gone tomorrow.
Right, disposable.
Very, very much disposable, very much like a big lighter,
Right.
Yeah, you use it to the max until it's done, and then you keep lighting it, trying to get it to the lighter. It doesn't light, and you just throw it away,
Yeah, it's like ear candy. I totally know what you're talking about.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's a little bit, I wouldn't say it's frustrating, but it's a touch disappointing to know that, that people put their energies and their effort into something that really doesn't last that long.
Yeah, just a flavor in your mouth. That's how sort of the new rock is too. In a lot of ways, there'll be great new rock tunes, but I agree you have this feeling like, man, I'm getting off on this so much, but eventually this is just going to be toast, and it won't be part of the future catalog of classics.
Yeah, there's a lot of that been happening, and in a way, it's kind of understandable, because when you think of how much easier it is for everybody to record nowadays, and to put music out there. There was once a time when I remember when we first signed to CBS Records or to Polygram, or even to Island with our first couple of records, where it was really like, it went through the mill, mm-hmm. Chris Blackwell would come in and he would listen, and, he would be very critical about certain things he didn't like, and which was sometimes a little bit, to us kind of like...
frustrating.
I don't know about frustrating, but kind of like knocking the wind out of your socks, And we have to understand that, there was an A&R guy, there was a marketing guy, there was Chris himself as president and stuff, and they were like, how are we going to sell this, But I don't even think any of them recognize in their mind that the day like what we're seeing here would come, when some guy can just stay in his house and his Pro Tools record and just put this thing online and just sell 100,000 in 3 days,
And bypass the whole process you're talking about.
Yeah, man, there's no process.
Right.
Yeah, so, I think it was good for us as musicians in those days to have a lot of people around us who were critical and who helped us to mold our careers. And even though I was vehemently disagreeing with some of them some of the times who were trying to push you in one way or push you to get a hit song in another way and stuff. I think that at the end of the day, the process that we went through is what we went through in our era, and what these kids are going through now, they're going through in their era. So, because there are tons and tons of people putting out beats and putting out stuff that's not getting a chance, for whatever reason. Whether they don't have the right rapper that's down on it, or they just can't get the right break here or the right break there, somebody's not playing the music or whatever, but it's kind of transcended itself into a new kind of thing that's out there, which has the same, hurdles that you have to get over, so it's just a different thing to my generation, but the new generation is just as tough, and you have to be good,
I think a lot of what we're talking about, when you talk about the way that the music is so disposable today, yet you talk about the ease with which it can be created, the way you eloquently describe that, from listening to you, it almost seems like one feeds the other, meaning that because it's so easy that you can do it yourself, you don't need a producer, you don't need a studio, you can just do it all yourself. In so many ways, the music becomes more disposable because it doesn't require the sort of process that you used to have to go through.
But this is basically what I'm saying. I remember the days when a song was created when, like Third World would set up their equipment almost like we were rehearsing, but what we're doing was jamming.
Right.
And we were creating, Somebody would come with the idea, and we build on it until it became a song. And then we'd sit down and we'd go through the lyrical content, and sometimes it would be that we had a verse, or we had a chorus, but we needed a second verse. We'd agonize over the second verse. And then, probably at the end of the day, probably we wouldn't be that, satisfied with it, but we needed to finish a song. And, that process would take a very, very long time. And then the arrangement would come into question and so on. And then at the end of the day now, we'll be ready to go to the studio to record it. And then going to the studio sometimes to record it. When we get in there, we hear something new happening. So there was even creativity happening within the studio process.
Right. Yeah.
Which is kind of like...
building. It's like you're building the song.
It's like you're building along the way,
All right.
And then sometimes you find that you may have a really hot idea and you go to the studio and it's not developed at all. And it just happens in the studio.
Spontaneously.
So there were two different things. There was one school of thought where some people in Third World would always say, let's make sure we go and do this and work before we go to the studio so we don't spend any time fooling around in the studio. And then sometimes we go to the studio and something just happened in the studio. Now That We Found Love totally happened in the studio.
Right.
But it's a song that we had been playing when we were a dance band, when we were playing around Jamaica and playing in hotels and stuff. We have been doing that song as a cover. And we were just screwing around in the studio one afternoon, and it just came up like, well, let's try this song with a different kind of beat, and let's jazz it up, and let's disco it up, but with a reggae feel and stuff. And it was a big hit, Oh,
it was like dynamite. Yeah,
so, stuff like that really happens, So music is very funny, but one thing you'll always find is that honesty and sincerity will carry you very far in music,
Oh, some good words, and certainly probably a good reflection on your legacy and how people who are your fans, at least, like myself, would view you guys, would view the true roots artists. When you talked about the crafting of songs and sort of the difference between, when you build it up and then other times maybe a moment of experimentation leads to a great thing, how did you guys first get hooked up with Stevie Wonder? What brought you to his world?
Well, to be honest with you, Stevie Wonder brought his world to Jamaica, because with the passing of Bob Marley, Stevie Wonder was very, very hurt, and, he really felt it on a big level. And he basically gave up a whole year of his life and just came to Jamaica and just said, boy, he's going to go down to Jamaica and just live down there and feel the vibes of the people, which is what he did. And Bob died in May. And Steve came down like in June. And he stayed from June, July. And the Reggae Sunsplash was coming up in August. And he had been just showing up in these places, like in Montego Bay and just playing. He'd just show up in a club one night and just play.
Wow.
And just freak people out.
I bet.
And, he knew that we were going to play on Sunsplash. And he had known us before because we had been in a studio recording in Los Angeles, and we were recording a tune called "Come Together," and this song is on the one beat. It's like, can't say free until you say Mozambique, yeah. And it's like kind of like a steel pulse thing,
right?
And he heard it, and he was passing the studio, and he said, "Hey, Third World, you guys are on the one." And he subsequently wrote a tune where he says, Third World is on the one, which is Master Blaster jamming.
Right.
He said, peace has come to the Zimbabwe, Third World is right on the one. He's talking about us. So it's that we didn't know each other, we knew each other. And then, he said, well, he wanted to come on and jam with us at Reggae Sunsplash. And we had just come in the island because we were out there touring and stuff, and then so we had to go up to this villa in Mobay and rehearse Master Blaster with him that afternoon, which was a trip. Because on top of doing all our sound check and getting ourselves ready for the show, we had to go and rehearse with Stevie Wonder
in Montego Bay. That's awesome.
Yeah, that was a real trip. And he came on with us, and Rita Marley came on too, and we did Master Blaster with him, and which was a huge. People went nuts, and we did. Now that we found love, and I think we did like One Love with Rita and him and stuff, and that's pretty much how we linked up with him. And then after that, we told him we were recording our album and stuff, and he said he kind of invited us to come to his studio in LA.
Wow.
And finish the album there. And, at the time we were on CBS, so management and the record company were talking and so on. And so we got that hooked up and we went up there with him. And then, he playing us Too Close as the first time as he played for us. And, at some point, the record company came in and said, yeah, we love playing us Too Close, but we need something that's going to cross over.
Mm.
And so he said, well, he was working on this song, Tried Your Love, and he wanted to know how we feel about it and stuff. And, one thing just led to another, and it was incredible,
Is it a highlight in your life?
Huge highlight in my life.
It's it just gives me chills just getting to hear about it. I mean, it's the guy is epic. Is there an enduring memory of working with him, or have you developed the kind of relationship where you can still be in touch with him?
Yeah. I mean, it's the kind of thing that we're not in touch with him every day, but anytime our paths cross, it's all good.
I bet.
Yeah. He appeared with us at Carnegie Hall recently, a couple of years back. We were doing Wycliffe Jean's.
Yeah, I watched the video of that. That was great.
Yeah. And, Steve's a friend for life, and that's how he is with people and so on. He's a tremendous person and one of the most awesome human beings probably. He's right up there for me with Muhammad Ali, Pele, Garfield, Sobers, Stevie Wonder. Those boys are all up there,
Is there any lesson that you got from working around him, or anything that you have been able to apply to your life? Doesn't always have to be musical. Could just be a way you treat people or a way you look at things.
Well, I think what Steve did for me was he kind of inspired me to feel that there was never a time when you should be saying that you're satisfied with something, He is very much like that. He was like super hard to please. in a way, but at the same time very easy to please also. When he heard something he liked, he really ran for it, but he'd fight and fight and fight and fight for something he didn't feel happy about.
Mm.
And I think his music expresses that,
And
and there are lots of Stevie Wonder songs, and I listen to them and I hear the performance of some of the people that play on them, and I say, but that guy could have done a guitar solo better. But that's just what Steve felt was good. That's what he wanted. And I think that's a big lesson for people in the world, to know your own reality and know what's good for you, and be satisfied with it and to be able to live with it. I think that's a really, really great thing that Stevie Wonder taught me,
That's it's kind of a balance between perfectionism and your own aesthetic satisfaction, I guess.
Absolutely.
Right.
And what you perceive perfectionism as.
Right. Not to beat yourself too much.
Perfectionism is a lot of scales being played perfectly. To some other people, it's two notes that just sound right.
Oh, I'm with you, brother. It's the difference between Carlos Santana bending some note and an orchestra maestro trying to... I totally know what you mean.
Yeah.
I totally know what you mean. Your credits also include getting to be and work around Bob Marley. How did you cross paths with Bob?
Well, I crossed paths with Bob very early on when I was in Inner Circle. Before I left Inner Circle and formed Third World, I was in Inner Circle, and we were the top backing band in those days, in the 1970-71 time, and we would have a lot of assignments to do, various shows and various stuff, and a couple of times we came across the Wailers, and we had to back them up, and from those days there was always this aura of attention around them, and everybody was like, oh, the Wailers are coming to rehearse and they're the top boys, and everybody just got very jumpy and very because they were very eccentric and known to be very set in their ways and know what they want, and they didn't mince words and stuff. So I was 13 at the time, and I even got the point that here were some guys coming, but I knew I was good, and I knew I could follow what they were doing. So,
right.
But that was where I first met Bob. I met him. We had to back him up at a theater called the State Theater in Kingston, and I never forget he was doing "Sun is Shining," and it was just amazing. The rehearsal was amazing and the show was amazing. And after that, we did some more shows with him around. And then, we did the whole political thing with Michael Manley, and Bob was there too, so part of that. So I had my early experiences with him there. And then when he came up with Catch a Fire, then I really started to just see him differently as a huge, huge, huge person, But from the very early days, I always knew he was going to be something very special. And my mother, who was the best music teacher that I ever knew in my life, and she had heard him at some concert, at a high school when he was a guest. And she had said that Bob Marley is going to be very, very great.
Wow.
Yeah. And
your mom called it.
Yeah, she called it. And I called it too from early because I knew too. A lot of people were, not once skeptical, but they were saying that, Jamaicans, the music, the people won't understand. When he said them say, or, tired for say we face, they're not going to understand that kind of thing. But, Bob broke those barriers.
He did. He brought pidgin, if you will, sort of to the world in so many ways.
Yeah, and he made patois almost acceptable everywhere,
Right. That's exactly. That's so. Would you say you developed at the time of his passing? Was he a friend at the time of his passing?
Very, very good friend. Very, very good friend.
When did you last see him?
Oh, I'm not sure. I think I saw him somewhere on the road. I'm not sure. We have seen him in London.
So 80?
He was in New York at the time, but Damien's mom, Cindy, and my ex-wife had a store together.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so we used to speak a lot on the phone and stuff. And I remember seeing him at Tough Gang at 56 Hope Road because Damien was born in 79. And Damien was born in 78. My son was born in 79. And he died in 81.
Right.
And I had taken my son to see him. Just when Shia was around, I'd say he was around 6, 7 months old, I'd taken him to see him at Tough Gang. So August 79 would have been early 80.
Was the last time you ran?
I had seen him there. And then he had gotten sick in the summer of that year in the park in New York. And then he passed away in May. So that was probably close to the last time I saw him. And he was asking me about Jacob Miller, who had just died. And he was saying, wow, what the hell of a thing with Jacob Miller. And then that just happened to him. So that's kind of like sometimes what happens in the world,
Yeah, I bet, like a foretelling in so many ways.
For real.
That's and now your son, full circle, is full-time with Damien. What's his role with Damien's group?
No, he's full-time bass player with Damien, and he's also a producer, with Damien. Has did some of the work on the album with Nas.
Is he doing something with that project with Mick Jagger and Damien?
Yeah, he's in the video.
Did you get to meet Mick Jagger?
No, I met him before with Third World. I knew the Stones. I know the Stones.
Yeah.
But he's on that super heavy thing.
That's got to make you proud.
Yeah, man, I'm proud of him, man. He's a great boy, and the humility that comes with the package is amazing,
So he has a lot of humility, you're saying? He's a mellow guy.
Yeah, man, it's a great, great, great experience to know that he has become up such a humble person and so on. So
what a nice thing to say about your son. I hope someday he gets to hear what you said there. That'll know.
Well, he's heard it before.
Right. Yeah. I'm sure that he has. As a final note before I let you go, you're connected to the Jackson 5. Explain how that happened.
I'm not necessarily connected to the Jackson 5. We just happened to play with them because there are 2 shows we did with Bob. We did the Jackson 5 show, which was Bob Marley and the Wailers, Third World, and the Jackson 5. And then we did one day, it was called, I don't remember, but it was Harold Melville and the Blue Notes, Bob Marley and the Wailers, and Stevie Wonder. I think that was called the Wanderlove concert or something like that. So both those concerts we played.
With the Jackson 5?
No, with Bob.
With Bob?
Yeah, in Kingston at the stadium. But the Jackson 5 show was the first one that we played at when the band was very young. We had just started. That was like in 75.
Jesus. You got memories of that?
Yeah, man, because my mom died only a few days before that show, so I remember that clearly. And there are pictures on Facebook of Michael Jackson sitting with the Wailers. Kind of looks strange seeing him sitting there with like Seco Patterson and those guys. It's a little bit
Family Man and stuff.
But at the same time, it's kind of cool too, because they're all great black stars, So it's really kind of cool.
You got to interact with him at all?
Not with Michael. No, but I did meet him. But I met him at the Rose Bowl many years after when we had Tried Your Love, and Quincy Jones was on the show at the Rose Bowl, and Mike was just appearing as a guest. Just came there to just do something for Quincy, and we had a little short meeting, and he said, "You guys did Tried Your Love, I mean, I can't do his voice there, but that's higher than mine. But seemed like a sweet guy. I mean, tremendous artist.
What a cool thing, dude. You have gotten to meet so many people, Cat. I'm just so envious in you. You can tell the stories so well. A lot of people meet a lot of folks, but they can't remember it really well or something. But you've got cool stories, and I hope that you have not minded sharing them with me. It really has meant a lot getting to talk with you. You're a really, really worldly guy, and we're so lucky that you're coming back for these shows. I hope this has been at least an okay experience for you today.
Yeah, man, this is great, man. That's the love. And I'm hoping all the Hawaiian listeners are checking out our album, Patriots.
I'll give you a hug. I'll give you a high five. I appreciate it, Kat. I'll be in touch with Stacy. I'll do everything I can to put the word out there on the shows. I'll put a link to the record and a link to your site on our page. And I mean it, dude. It's been a lot of fun talking to you. You've got great stories.
Okay, buddy. Lots of love.
Be safe, Kat.
Yeah, man, everything cool.
Aloha, brother.
Yes, mahalo. Hey, this is Cat from Third World, and you're tuned to my good friend and a wonderful, wonderful human being, Dave Lawrence. Stay tuned. Hey, this is Cat from Third World, and I'm hanging out with Dave Lawrence, my absolute brethren. I'm wishing you the best 420 you ever had. God bless.